Okay, I think we'll go ahead and call the. A few things I gotta read before we close. So any member of the public looking to be heard shall come forward to the podium at the appropriate time and introduce themselves to the board. Members of the public recognized by the chair will have 3 minutes to speak on a single subject matter to address terms on the floor. The board of the trust will function as the city attorney. Okay, Chair Pinkerton is counting ballots with our canvassing board, and so actually, could you please call roll?
Certainly. Member Andrew,
Present.
Member Certain, Member Chance, Member Cornell,
Here.
Member Ferrero, Member Hart, Member Labarda, Member Pinkerton, Member Twombly.
I'm here.
Bill is online, and so I think she is still on, unless the record reflects Member Hart is walking in. Hey, Member Hart. And so we have a floor, the board is physically present, so the board may determine if there's an extraordinary circumstance that allows, board member Twombly to participate, which I believe is still on hurricane duty. Is that right? Yeah, motion and second, second by member Chance. Is there any discussion? Any public discussion? Coming back to the board, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. Okay. Now we can move on to the agenda and we come on agenda. Motion by member Andrew, second by member Shirley. Any discussion? Any public discussion? Like the board, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have no agenda. All right, so the first item on the agenda before we get to the agenda is general comment for anyone who wishes to address the board on anything not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address the board? Once going twice. All right, anyone online? Okay, it's going to close public comment. So that moves us to the executive director report. Hannah, your reference.
Thank you, sir. Anything you want to add before I jump in here?
Well, so I know you have a report, but I think this is an appropriate time to recognize our outgoing member Andrew for his service on the Children's Trust. I've known Shane. Well, we played baseball together when back in the boys' club days, didn't we? I was a freshman. You were what, a junior?
Yes, sir. You're a grandfather now. So
Oh, I think that was 82 or 80. Yeah, 82. So, Shane, it's been a pleasure
Years.
serving with you on this board. I know you care deeply about kids in our community. And thank you. And I think so good for you.
Yes, sir. Superintendent Andrew, this is just a token of our thanks for your service and your commitment to the Children's Trust and this community's children. This is a nice little card with my chicken scratch in it. This is a ficus, I believe, I was told, and a ficus represents wisdom, harmony. No?
It's a good plan.
It's a good plan. It's not a ficus. It's a fancy It's a fancy plant, not a ficus.
It can still represent wisdom and all.
Represents wisdom, harmony, and new beginnings. And that is what we wish for you, new beginnings. And personally, if I may have a point of privilege here, I just want to say thank you, Shane, for always being kind, considerate, thoughtful. You shared with me some memories of my dad that truly just blessed my soul. And you didn't have to do that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. Just, it's been an honor to serve with the trust here because I've learned so much. We have such a diverse group of individuals here that bring so much to the table. So I've learned a lot, and always as a lifelong learner, that's one of the joys of jumping into something you've never done before, right? So it's been almost 3 years, and so I have listened and learned, and we do have a strong board here, and I look forward to watching you all continue with our team, because we have an exceptional team, and our team is back there and right here, of course, led by Executive Director Kiner and Chief Operating Officer Goldwire, because she helped us get through the transition. I know when I was coming on the board, right, when you all were selecting a new executive director. And so I just want to give a shout out to our team that is always there volunteering on behalf of students, children, our youth, our families, everybody in our community. So I'm sure that their continued service is just going to be a blessing to the families here in Alachua County. And I'm positive that they're going to just continue to provide all children with equitable access, as is, part of our vision and mission, and ensuring that all children do have that opportunity to maximize their talents and gifts that each of them possess. And so I know you all are out there working with families and helping them identify all those talents and gifts that their children have. And you're advocates in all kinds of different areas for our children across the board. So I just want to encourage our board to continue that work, continue supporting the programs here in our community, because they really are making a difference. And if we have questions about them, then let's go see those programs in action. Because I think oftentimes when I get into certain places, then I really see what's happening with children and can fairly evaluate the what's not collected in the data, right? Because we get a lot of data, but to see what our programs are doing in action is really where we get to live and we serve children. So I just thank you all and been blessed by the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Director Collective Member Pedrosa has just arrived. Dr. Walker, thank you for being here. Okay, Director Kiner, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I want to highlight our Lights On After School event. I want to thank you, Member Cornell. I want to thank Member Thurton for coming out and participating with us. Our partner, the Boys and Girls Club, did an outstanding job. The field was filled with hay and pumpkins. Our partners, providers, it really was a nice event. I would like for there to have been a few more families and children there, but overall, I thought it was an excellent event. Next year, we're certainly going to partner with hopefully one of our after schools, and we're going to look into maybe moving it from the actual night of the event, the national event, so that maybe more families and children can come out to it. That's always an issue that we hold it at a certain time. That time is just a tough time to get families to attend. But overall, an excellent event. And I have to do a shout out for the Northwest Club's director, Deontay Lee. He's outstanding. I hope that anybody who hasn't been out to the Northwest Club will go out there, meet with Director Lee, and see the wonderful things that they are doing at that club. So just want to say thank you to him and the Boys and Girls Club. I also want to highlight our mentoring convening. We held our first one for several of our mentoring providers. 7 of them were there, correct? It was a great event. They were able to reflect on the first year of programming, what was working. They were able to network, share best practices, share with the trust what we could do to help them more. So we are looking forward to these convenings. You're going to keep hearing us talk about bringing our providers together who are doing life work, giving them an opportunity to chat with one another. Certainly, they're receiving information from us. They're being trained, but we want them to talk to one another. We want them to share, what's working, what are their pain points, so that we can collectively come together to see how we can mitigate those. So kudos to the staff, Bonnie and Amy, their name. They did an excellent job. Amy, I think you were 3 weeks on the job, maybe at the time, last week or week before. And she was phenomenal facilitating. So really kudos to Bonnie and Amy for their hard work on that event. And then, last week was Halloween, and we partnered with UF Card to have some trick-or-treating in the building. Guardian Ad Litem joined us. It was so much fun. We were dressed as, person's not here. What were we all?
Storybook characters.
That's right. Storybook characters, because I was a head librarian. And it was a lot of fun. So thank you, team, for everybody who participated. And then we have this plaque that I want to pass that down. Saturday, 2 Fiesta Radio, is that right? Held their festival downtown, and they recognized the Children's Trust and thanked us for our commitment and support of children and families in the community. So Liz, thankfully, was there doing what she does, engaging with the community, and was able to go up on stage and accept our flag.
God bless.
For
So it's not what it says, who is on it. So this thing is signed by Willie Trevino. And if you're not a Latin music person, Willie Trevino was like the hottest thing in Miami when I was in high school and a little later. He was one of Gloria and Emily Esteban's creations. Liz is nodding her head. So they have a Willie Trevino kind of plaque. Is very cool. Very cool.
And Liz told me to say that, and I forgot. So thank you, Max.
And he was in town, right? Now he's about to be able to get down there.
And I believe the city gave him a key to the city, right? The mayor gave him a key to the city, so it must be a big deal.
If you're a Miami kid, Willie is definitely.
And then lastly, this one is a little bittersweet. We have a staffing change that's going to be taking place. Ashley is going to be transitioning out of her role as a trust clerk and my assistant. She wants to focus more on her family. You all know she has a little one, but she has kindly agreed to stay on until we find someone for that role. So I'd like to publicly thank Ashley. She was the second employee of the trust. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah,
Behind Colin?
yeah, maybe, yeah.
So she's been here almost from the beginning, and we would not have a trust without her. So we want to say thank you, Ashley, for all that you where we are today. And I think that might be it.
Is actually, are you leaving the trust or are you just transitioning out of that role into something else? When you say transitioning out.
So what we've come up with for now is once I hire someone for the role, we have a reception position, so she may slide into that for a little while, but we expect that in January, by January, she will be gone from the trust. She's trying to stick around and help.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the group?
I actually, so I don't forget, I was going to suggest the after-school program that we possibly change, like maybe leave it at the board stuff because it's so simple. If you're willing to.
Oh, the event?
But a different day, because it is hard to pick the students up from school and to transport them to a different location. And I talked with girls place about possibly, because that's a simple one. She said it would just be security and was trying to get it. So she had a valid reason, but I did like the location. I thought it was an excellent event, and I thought it was centrally located, which made it more convenient for folks to get there. But it is to try to do it in that space right after school. So I don't know if it's Saturday, like we can find one, you know. But, They may be better than the after school, because it's just so taxing on the providers trying to get the students and kids there, pick up from school and get doing others.
Yeah, next year will be our fifth year of the event, correct? So we said now is the time for us to try some different things. So Tina, thank you for that. We certainly, can put that on the board and see if that's something they would be willing even to do. I'm not opposed to it.
Related, what day would be?
It's a Thursday. It's always a national, it's a national event, and they kind of choose the day, and then everybody in theory comes in on that day, and all around the United States, we're all holding our event at the same time.
As an alternative, the early release day.
Yeah, could be.
Might be able to.
Okay, thank you for that. And
Yes, sir. No, sir.
right, my only comment was, it looks like you almost missed a day on the report. There was a lot in there.
October was a busy month.
Thank you. All right, the next item is, at 11, the both action, and I was going to ask Bob and Frank with Alachua, and I'll give you a sense of what we're going to count. So Bob, let me know.
Over the last 2 years, the legislature has passed some laws designed to encourage the development of affordable housing. And for years, it had various grants and programs that would give money, discounts, tax breaks, that sort of thing, for people who are providing or are building. In the past 2 years, what they've done is they've taken a little bit of a different tack, and they're trying to get the developers to build it on their own with a promise of a tax exemption. And there are three different programs, and we're only interested in one. It impacts a slice of the housing market, up to 125% of AMI, average median is what that stands for. And one of the requirements is that you be in a county that has an appropriate housing deficit, and that's determined by the Schimberg people on an annual basis. The problem that, obviously Alachua County is very interested, the trust should be very interested in affordable housing. And if you ever want someone to come talk to you about affordable housing programs in the county, we can see that that's done. The problem is student housing. And the way the law is written now is that student housing falls into this category of affordable housing based upon AMI. Because students don't have any income other than what comes from mom. And their rents, are, you can rent by the room, rent by the unit. So it's a very difficult situation for small towns with big learning institutions, such as us, Leon County. Less of a problem in places like Hillsborough, Miami-Dade. Of course, there are other, Miami-Dade does qualify for various reasons. But we do. And there are a number of smaller counties that do, a number of medium counties that do, some larger counties. So our concern is the impact that this would have. It affects new inventory. So it has to have been built within 5 years of the application. Well, if you just go down University or 13th Street, you see all the new student housing that has been built in that period of time. And if you just think about the value of that property on a commercial basis, you can see how much that could impact. And it has to have more than 70 units. And it can be, depending on the formula, 120% exemption or 100% exemption from the property appraiser. So, I don't have that figure. I can probably get the proposed figure, by the next meeting. What I can tell you is, from what I understand, there were 11 applicants in this past year to the property appraiser. One, the property appraiser said, yes, you need the test. Up to this point, the property appraiser has been rather skeptical of the extent to which housing that's built specifically for students qualifies under this act. So of those 11, 10 were found to be primarily student housing. Now, what happens, if you don't know, what happens when you disagree with what the property appraiser does, you go to the value adjustment board. Value adjustment board does what the value adjustment board does, and whoever doesn't like what the value adjustment board does gets to litigate. And so we are still in early stages on this student housing issue. Now, this is not based upon an exemption that the county has passed yet. This county hasn't passed that yet. So this is the existing exemptions that were put in place by the 2023 law. What we're proposing to the board that is considered to the trust is something they did in the 2024 amendments. Because in the 2023 law, they were talking about cities and counties. The 2024 law has a provision that basically says if your county qualifies, taxing authorities within that county can also pass resolutions to opt out of this. And taxing authority includes school boards, independent districts such as us, and governmental bodies other than cities and counties. So,
Like,
libraries, yes, and well, that's an independent district, and the library is going to be doing this as well, or bring it to their board to consider it. And they'll be talking about it next week, and then if the board is, library board's willing, it will go on the December agenda. So the mechanics would basically be, if this board's interested, it would go on the December agenda. There's a resolution that we're basically stealing what the county did. Our office steals resolutions from other bodies as often as we can. And I don't know where we got ours from, so I'm stealing another attorney.
might have been fantastic.
Could be Pasco. And we've just, this is something that's not unique to Alachua County. This is being talked about in a number of different counties. What this does, because this is having an impact, a big impact in some counties, because of design. They're designing, developers are trying to do these things, of course, to save money, and they're designing it in such a way that it can get the best tax breaks they can. And I'm not a tax wonk, so if you want me to bring our tax wonk in to talk about this, I can bring them in. But basically, in order to, the county is most likely, and I'll talk to you about the board's position, but the county is going to be adopting this. Will present, if this board's approval, will present a resolution in December to resolve to opt out of those exemptions. That gets bundled up, given to the property appraiser. And she then notes the properties that exemption doesn't apply to. And again, it's going to be sort of larger developments. It's not going to be your duplexes, your small apartments, even if they're brand new. There's a certain floor, and that floor is 70 units.
So two things, and then I'll, ask Tyler, to speak, and then I'll open up to questions. Two things that I just want to frame out from the county's perspective. So first of all, in 2023, we had a number of applications, and the act is not a bad act. It's basically to encourage affordable housing in certain counties, Alachua County, one of them. Many Wall Street developers are utilizing this act to basically get, developments built for student housing and avoid taxes. And when you have an entity that doesn't have to pay the ad valorem tax, what that essentially does is that forces everyone else to subsidize that. And in Alachua County, I think we calculated prior to, me personally meeting with Aisha, it's a $5 to $6 million ad valorem hit. So, the legislature recognized that in 2024, they allowed special districts to then opt out so that they wouldn't be exempt, and so those developers would still be subject to the special taxing districts ad valorem. And so, as Bob mentioned, I think there's only one right now, and I think Alachua County is going to opt out the county commission. And then this board can decide if they want to follow our lead, so that we don't have a taxing hit, for any of those remote. So, Ms. Kyner, do you have something to add? Because I know we reached out to some of the other trusts.
Correct. So I reached out to the fact to see if this, this was an issue for the other trusts. And I received right before the meeting started, feedback that all of the trusts, are being encouraged to exempt that. So, that's the word from fact to all of us. About a week ago, when we put this on the agenda, and I was just trying to gather information. Nobody was looking at this as an issue. So I want to say thank you, Bob, for bringing it to my attention. And then I sent it up the, flagpole to the fact that, this could potentially be an issue for us. And now everybody is going to move on it. So I just wanted you all to know that.
Okay.
One other thing, these are the exemptions, the request for exemption has to be filed annually by the property owners. And the decision to opt out has to be done annually by the government board. So this is something that you would be able to look at the next year and see how this has worked after years and, having it in place for a year, the financial impact will be better understood. But it's one of those things that is going to have to be done on an annual basis, both by the developer and by the government agency that's opting out.
Yeah, and I believe the county is going to, opt out and then just see what happens. If we have true affordable housing, we may not do that in the following year, but certainly in the first year, I believe it's something. I talked to Margaret and then I talked to Turkey and then, number certain and then back.
So my question is, do all of the taxing authorities have to pass the resolution for it to carry, or no? It's just.
So we get opt out in the year, this board doesn't.
So what,
So it's our tax that we're voting.
That is opting out so that they're not tax exempt. They would still be taxed.
They'd be
for-
paying.
so they have to be paying our tax as well. Got it. Thank you.
Understood?
And I heard, my question was, is this all government agencies? I mean, it's been the tax district, you went to school board, and so I just made a note, and so I'm not, does that apply to city? School
Well,
board, libraries, bubbles?
cities and counties are already covered.
Okay.
What the 2024 Act did is it said, if your county qualifies, and there's requirements that you have to meet, because there are a number of counties, a couple with trusts, that do not qualify because of the housing inventories. But if your county qualifies, then the taxing authorities within that county can opt out. So the school board, being a taxing authority, would be able to. The library, being a special independent district, would. And of course, in going in a little bit into the tax wonkiness, this is a specific exemption because there are a couple of others. This is what they call the middle piece. And so this is the one we have a choice over. There's one that is a local option. There's one that is state imposed. And then there's this one that is, you can opt out of based upon, AMI. So yes, the school board can, and that would be up to the school board to get those.
So I'm gonna ask if you would to share that resolution out. Has it been on your agenda?
No, not yet.
I'll be happy to
Sure,
share it.
thank you.
I thank you for bringing that to our attention. There's a lot of interest in town right now about affordable housing. And, in my foggy little mind, we don't do a very good job in this community of looking out for families with children. We have all kinds of things that help veterans or perhaps single adults get into housing, but there really isn't anything that favors the homes of children who are now living in cars or motels. So could I ask, could we have Anne Ray from the Schimberg Center, perhaps come and make a presentation to us sometime, workshop it a little bit so that we as a board can be a little bit more informed about what the local issues are with affordable housing on behalf of families with children. I'm specifically interested in that because there's a lot going on with the Chamber of Commerce and Community Foundation, and people are rolling around in this information and our little collaborative as well, kind of rolling around in this information. But I think it's time for us to be on top of it academically and intellectually so that we can do that advocacy for families with children. And I think Anne Ray is absolutely a fantastic local expert, and she can tell us all about what the Schimberg Center for Housing Studies report means, and we can ask her a ton of questions about that. Will happen before December. Whenever you can. I'm not.
Talking about workshops.
Yeah.
What resources are available and how can you provide or help those families that live in affordable or housing challenge locations as it affects.
Right, I mean, are there things we could be doing as a trust that we aren't doing now, that we just knew about them in mind?
Okay, any other questions? So I think the idea here is not to pass the motion, but in fact to educate, and then we'll bring this back in December. All right, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this item? No motion on the floor, but anything? Okay, we'll bring back to board. Any other questions on this one? Okay, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Michael, for that. All right, let's get back, let's get into now our old business. This was item 12, child care tuition assistance partnership for the early learning village of Alachua County. And, Leah, you have a minutes? What did that mean to receive the update? Just to receive the update, correct?
Well, I think Leah's gonna give you a short presentation on the update.
Yeah, you are right. Crap, right there. Push that thing all the way back to the wall.
Hello. So today we're going to talk about the child care tuition assistance partnership program. They're going to put all the words in what we're calling it. So I'm going to do a reminder for a brief introduction, and then of course talk about the follow-up on the board recommendation that we had in April, and then of course funding, investment, and impact, and go through the program eligibility at a glance and flow chart, sliding fee scale, and provider requirements, and then finally additional program components. Quickly. Okay. All right, so at the April 8th meeting, we talked about the Child Care Tuition Assistance Partnership Program, and we introduced that to the trust. Using investment funds from the Children's Trust of Alachua County and partnering with ELC of Alachua County, the Child Care Tuition Assistance Program would create a local funding category that would support the child care needs of Alice Family in Alachua County. And if you remember, Alice Family stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. This program would align with ELC's working families category with requirements and which is accept the income limits and school readiness plus fee scale and set the initial eligibility income limit at 100% of the state median income. Go ahead. So the trust approved, the recommendation that the staff approved was contract with the ELC Early Learning Coalition of Alachua County for the creation of the program, provide an initial investment of $150,000 along with future investments to sustain the funding category with ELC. And then of course, the trust also motion approved to attempt to maximize the number of families and kids that could be met underneath that program and ensure the proper documentation is acquired for the Division of Early Learning and the Early Learning Coalition on the eligibility of the program. So, as you can see, for the follow-up discussion, we've had lots of discussions. We talked to Dr. Henry Knopf, we've talked with the Anita Zucker Center on the project, Early Learning Coalition. They've received feedback and guidance from all of the early learning coalitions in the state. They've also talked to their association of ELC, and they've talked to the Division of Early Learning through the Association of Early Learning, through the Association of Early Learning Coalitions. What we decided is that until written clear guidance is provided from the state so that we can give to all of you, that we would fund this project at 100%. So the scope has been written to align with that decision. So our date is this: the Division of Early Learning in partnership with Early Learning Coalitions across the state, they're still working on that written guidance. They don't have it just yet. And they're working on what the language could look like and how best to utilize state match and federal school readiness programs, because that was part of the conversation. We would pay 50%, and then of course the match funds would pay 50%, and that was where we stopped. So in this scenario, we'll be paying 100% instead of 50%. And I'll pause there. Next slide. So this investment impact is a total funding of $358,920.70. And the direct investment to slots is $261,000. And the reason why that is that it also includes a position. And so one of the things that Early Learning Coalition has been doing is really trying to really improve that gap in between when families apply and when they actually receive a response and can utilize their slot, but utilize their voucher. So by adding in that position, it helps them with that flow of work, and we agreed to fund that. So this funding would approximately pay for 31 children a year. And I know that seems small, but currently on that Alice population waitlist, there's about 70 kids, but that's how much this one would probably pay. And of course, ELC serves 340 children a year. So eligibility at a glance. So right now, go ahead. Right now, school readiness, the initial gross family income is at 150% of the federal poverty level, up to or below 85% of the school median, state median income. And then when we look at school readiness plus, I mentioned this a little bit the last time we were here in April, and at the time it was very new. The state didn't know what they were doing. We weren't quite sure what it was going to look like. And at this point, it's been approved by the state, and there's lots of things that talk about school readiness plus. And the beauty of school readiness plus, it's supposed to be there to help families with that fiscal cliff. That's why it was created. So what we're doing with our program is that we're matching that school readiness plus criteria, and also because it's the same population. The problem is that those families that are on that wait list do not get to be moved into the school readiness plus program. So they still need funding and they still need support. So this is us supporting those families that still need it from there. So I'll pause there for questions.
Any questions?
So Mia, I remember from our conversation about this in April that someone mentioned, perhaps it was you, that some of the families can't pay their copay or whatever that's called. with the Early Learning Coalition, and we were considering covering their copay so they could go into the program. What happened with that?
So we are not paying their copays. They still will have a family copay that they will need to pay. So in a way, they have some skin in the game. I think that's the way that the state looks at it, that every parent has something that they need to fund. And my understanding is that's not something we can ever cover. So they will always have something in terms of a copay that they will need to pay for this program. I see you thinking, so.
And Mia, did I understand correctly that by us matching school readiness plus, we'll be able to cover close to half the houses, 31 of the 6 and 7 kids?
Yes.
That are currently not in the program.
That are currently not getting any school readiness. So what happens with school readiness is that, as those families make more money, there is that option of now they can go into the school readiness plus. And school readiness is really for a year, but it gives them that comfort of not, I can make more money, I can accept that promotion and not decline it and still be able to continue to do what I need to do. With us, by us matching it, number one, you don't have families jumping ship to come to our program because it's better. So that's why the programs are going to look exactly the same in terms of the requirements, in terms of what the families would have to pay.
So when you said that they wouldn't move into school readiness, you know that simply, they would. You said, I heard you say that there were some families who would move into the school readiness plus fund.
So the families that are on the wait list, they currently are not in the school readiness because they make more money. They meet all the other requirements. They just make too much money. So there is a school readiness plus that technically is the same families. They make the same amount of money. Unfortunately, they cannot be moved from being on the wait list to now going into school readiness plus. School readiness plus is a direct pathway to the school readiness game. It's complicated.
Yeah, so if you want a school readiness family, you can't move into school readiness plus. And those are the families that are outside, that are on those two lists that the funding from the local funding.
Exactly. That could change in the future, but right now, that's what we're doing.
I would just add, all of this, if you will remember, was because we were trying to wait for ELC to tell us what they were doing, what we could actually do to maximize our dollars and do the match. And we may come back to you, next year and say, we want to do something a little bit different, based on whatever their final ruling is going to be. But this at least will allow us to support half of those families. I remember at the time, Member Cornell, you kept asking, what's the number? We want to try to support the maximum we can. And keep in mind that families are always going to be added to the wait list. It just so happens that right now it's 61 children. I just wanted to add.
I just have one more question, Mia, and this is perhaps for our evaluation team. Is there any way we can find out at the end of the day how many of these children actually were deemed ready for kindergarten at the end of the program? Like, isn't that one of our quality measures?
It is. And so one of the things I'm sure they'll pipe up if I get it wrong, but one of the things that we're adding to our contract is actually looking at what that is. We'll have to do a data agreement with both ELC and then of course our school district as well, because we need to be able to see what those scores, those assessment scores would look like. That's the best way to be able to see, what gains they were actually made.
Because aren't we hoping that this is going to be wildly successful in getting these children ready for kindergarten, and we'll figure out a way to expand it? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's gather that data if it's
Yeah. That's what we're hoping for, that it is successful. If we know that if kids are getting what they need, then of course it makes them ready for kindergarten. All right, so this is the flow chart that ELC developed to help us, look at what the pathway is for families. So parents apply, and at the point that they apply, if they meet the eligibility, you can see the criteria there, very small. writing. But if they meet that criteria, which right now is they're working 20 hours, at least 20 hours per week, or they're in educational activity, receiving at least 10 credit hours, and a combination of employment or education. And then of course, there's some other ways that families can apply. Disabled parents are exempt as documented by the Social Security or licensed physicians. So once the parents have applied and they meet the eligibility as determined by the Division of Early Learning, then they go into a pathway. So families who are over that 200% federal poverty level, applications are rejected. There is no funding for those families. But if they are between 150% and 200% of the federal poverty level, they are placed into the local funding and added to the wait list. So there's a wait list for just about everything. There's a wait list. And from there, they process those, the families that are on that wait list to then give them a voucher. So there's a process and it can take a little bit. And then income that is below the 150 federal poverty are placed on the BG8 wait list, which is the working family wait list. So these families that are between the 150% and 200 federal poverty level, they're then broken up into other categories. And we want it to be clear so you kind of understand where our funding is going. So there's our funding, which funds it at 100%, but then there's also CAP funding from Alachua County, which funds it a local 50% match. So they are doing that match to match funding, and it's for ages 5 to 13-year-olds attending school. And then of course the city of Gainesville also has provided funding with a 50% match, and they fund 0 to 5-year-olds not in school. So that is, it kind of gives you a flavor of how those children can move through the various fundings that they have there in ELC. Next one. The next one is the sliding fee scale. So initially, like I said, this was not available when we first talked in April. It became effective on September the 24th, not so long ago. It's based on the Florida fiscal year 2025 annual state median income estimates, and it's utilized by all of the early learning coalitions. When we first, I won't repeat that one, and utilizing it provides equitable practices and ensures that families fund through the Child Care Tuition Assistance Partnership Program mirror the state school readiness program for families in the same income bracket. So it shows you what the daily fee would be for families, and it also talks about if it's a family of 4, if that income, what that income looks like for that family of 4 as well.
How many days a week is typical for the folks to participate?
When ELC did their budget, what they calculated it as is that about 22 days a month is what they actually calculated that to be. In terms of,
5 days.
yeah, 5 days.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot.
It's $100 a month.
Yeah.
A week. 400 a month.
That's a lot of money.
Oh, I know. Right, if you make 40,000, it's a lot of money.
So we also have some requirements for the providers as well. And these are standard requirements that to even be an ELC contracted vendor, you have to do these things. Be licensed through the Department of Children and Families, or at least be determined to be exempt from licensure, pass the DCF health and safety inspection, use developmental appropriate curriculum that addresses Florida early learning standards and early literacy, employ instructors who have passed a level 2 background screening, and of course employ instructors who have required training in early care, education, and literacy. Our preferred requirements also are is that we want to make sure that they have a class, at least a class score, a class assessment of 4.0. And the class stands for Classroom Assessment Scoring System. And it is an evidence-based observational tool used to assess the effectiveness of teacher-child interactions in the classroom, focusing on the following domains: emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. And then, of course, the other thing that we've added is that we want to make sure they're engaged in professional development, either offered here at the Children's Trust, and of course, we do BLI, as well as anything that ELC is also offering. And we have learned, especially through BLI, that when childcare centers engage in professional development, their class score goes up, the quality of their entire school goes up, how they engage their parents just increases, and it just becomes a well-rounded program. So that's one of the reasons why we have a preferred requirement.
So in which of these categories does the training that the Child Advocacy Center has contracted with us to do, which one of these categories fall into? For example, the trauma responsive training.
So for our elements program, learning management system that we have, all of our contracted providers have access to that system, including the advocacy centers, trainings. They also can utilize any of those. And so it may not be listed here, but that's something we work with ELC to do, to be able to bring it to their contracted providers.
And are they hiring it, or we're just suggesting it?
For this contract, we're suggesting it because they do have quite a few trainings, including those. So for this one, we are suggesting.
And then under the level, to that flood screen, is that including construction students have been thinking of them under the level two graduate student?
That part I don't know. That'd be a question that we would have.
I think under law, it happens. I think people need to try to get some land and instruction. I think that if it works, a good thing, it's going to work for us as well. They were granted an exemption and they were doing it. They were using. Yeah, first of all, I'm sure the cooking every minute. Services and dogs. So that's the people involved and we can have it involved with complicated and then feel complicated in my mind. I also really love the idea of the parent support specialist position. I think that is really the key element. And I wonder if that person, if there's obviously onboard families and time is either spent in a safe environment learning or not, they can also track how long it takes them closing up the app to getting family enrolled in the feeling. And maybe they could also make that training their charges to take those time, what they can place, and then the last point is that to Dr. Lavarda's last one is I'd be curious about multilingual. That's a good question. Not one I can answer about the multilingual, and I think that's where we believe how they address that. I will say that ELC does have a well-rounded, they do have their childcare resource and referral program under ELC. And because of that, if there are families that they are not able to assist, or if there are other needs of the families that they are assisting, they have an entire staff that can help support those families. And you don't have to come into their program formally in order to utilize it. You can actually just call them and they will be there to, provide those resources and tell you. So we have the school running PSL in Spanish. I've heard it several times. Yes, I know.
I just have a quick one. Can we create a parking lot on this subject? Because I know what we do is we fund it, and then the next year we fund it again with a little tweak. And I'm hoping that our parking lot will include a response to Member Chance's inquiry and maybe mine about kindergarten readiness, and maybe a third one about creating incentives for the providers to access that child advocacy center trauma training is really, really important. And I know we asked them to do a bazillion things, but if we can create an incentive, like if they get some extra something for it, maybe that could go in our parking lot for next time.
Last slide. So we already talked about the parent support specialist. The other part that we're adding is we want to launch it so that the community does know about it. Even though we're pulling 31 from that wait list, one thing that that Early Learning Coalition has taught us is that not all parents at that point, they have to be able to determine that they're still eligible to meet that. But they're not, then that's another way for more parents to be able to get this assistance as well. So that is a part of what we're doing too, is it adds in that communities. And I think that's it for this slide. Any additional questions?
Any additional questions for me? So Marcia, you don't need any direction. We've heard three comments that we're asking of you address next year for sure. I think the big one, I've heard Jeff Burrow say, suggested versus required. And, I don't know if we're ready to start requiring it, but I'm kind of ready.
Well, we're requiring it for other providers. It's just this one is new. And so.
All right, is there anyone from the public who wants to speak to this item? What? Yeah, it's great job. Good work. You know, we're working with. Wow, to see that for kids. Okay, the next item is the neighborhood innovation grant pilot. We did Greenville for all of the business of the Greenville Town Zone Family Learning Center. And on this one, we have a recommended action. The first one has to include recommendation to pilot the neighborhood innovation grant for Greenville for all. Greenville Empowerment Zone Family Learning Center and provide investment of $145,000 for the project. And but kind of
It's up again.
welcome back here.
Early learning, yes.
Neighborhood innovation grant, pilot program.
While she's doing that, I just did a quick Google search, and there are a lot of BCF training boards specifically for childcare centers, really from here. So they are out there already specifically targeting childcare.
And Cheryl, I see you there. If you want to comment, just put that hand up and I'll recognize. Okay, man, go ahead.
All right. So for the neighborhood innovation grant, we're going to talk about the background, the criteria, the funding investment, the pilot requirements, who is getting this grant, and then of course, I'll ask for recommendations. So the neighborhood innovation grant is built on the foundation of partnering strong neighborhoods, community partners, and quality early learning businesses as a path to addressing school readiness and achievement gaps in school. Strong neighborhoods encourage cooperation, nurture a sense of security and belonging, and promote skills and standards that help residents thrive and attach social networks that help residents access opportunities and resources locally and externally as needed. The Neighborhood Innovation Grant is intended to support an early learning business path towards quality. The prospective early learning business is in a neighborhood whose residents and community partners have started the work of building a strong neighborhood by investing in projects and programs that address residents' social determinants of health, physical health, economic stability. The neighborhood could use early learning educational support to address access, literacy, achievement, kindergarten readiness, and attendance. So our minimum requirements is that, number one, you be an early learning business for children 0 to 5. That you've been in business for at least a year, and that if you're in a neighborhood whose residents and community, like I just said, are looking like a strong neighborhood. The neighborhood could use, like I said, early learning education and to address access and literacy. We're also looking as a minimum requirement that you've already gone through our Velocity Master Class with the Business Institute for Early Learning, and you have an active family engagement and empowerment program in place. And you're willing to convene or partner with community partners, schools, and other early learning businesses within your neighborhood. So the investment for this one, the total investment is $125,000. Per child per day subsidy rate would be $11.50. And of course, this could impact approximately 40 to 128 children a year. And so we are, and I'm sure I'm one slide ahead, so I put it on this slide. One of the early learning centers that we're looking to work with for this pilot program is Gainesville Empowerment Zone, and they're currently licensed for 128 children. The reason why we have 40 to 128 is we wanted to make sure we had a good ratio of what their enrollment looked like over time. And so they've been at as low as around 40, but we know that they have the capacity of 128 children. These are our requirements, and so some of these things are what ECF already recommends. ELC already recommends to be one of their contracted childcare centers. So that's what you see in terms of school credentials. And this one, I talked about class 4 before, and this one we are raising that class 4 from being a 4.0 to a 4.5 or higher. We also want to know that they're on a good path for accreditation in Goldfield within 12 months. And by being a part of our accreditation academy, that is a sure way of being able to do that. We also would like to make sure they pass DCF's health and safety inspections. One of the other requirements is staff supports. We want to make sure that they offer professional development opportunities at least 4 to 5 times a year, that they support staff participating in Teach Early Childhood Scholarship Program, that they participate in ELC's meetings and participate in ELC's professional development supports. Learning supports, we've been talking about literacy for a while now. So utilizing YouFly curriculum and resources and other literacy supports to build up what their students and families need. And then of course, the neighborhood collaboration piece, partnering with parents, resources centers at Howard Bishop, Parent Academy with the school district, and library partnership to build robust resources and opportunities for parents and caregivers, and collaborating with neighborhood and early learning centers and local elementary schools to prepare for kindergarten and visit, for children's zone from MedCal and Robbins.
Robbins isn't on there, but and Robbins.
And Robbins. So why GEZ, or why Gainesville Empowerment Zone? The Gainesville Empowerment Zone Family Learning Center is a joint project by Gainesville for All and Alachua County Public Schools. And we talked about where they're located. They're located on the property of Medcap Elementary School. And then of course, their mission is to reduce disparities in English language arts achievements and close the achievement gap among Black and white students in Alachua County. One of the things we got to remember is that the kids that are in Gainesville Empowerment Zone are going to be zoned by either a Metcalf or Rollins. And they're most likely, those are the 2 schools that are working towards improving their kindergarten readiness rates and the 3rd grade reading scores. The other part of it is that they are surrounded, when I talk about strong neighborhoods, they are surrounded by quite a bit. Like I said, those are some of the community partners that are surrounding them. The other good part is that we already fund a lot of these. We fund the Library Partnership Resource Center. We also, we were funding something at Catholic Charities at one point. We also fund the health person at Howard Bishop. And then of course, there are other early learning businesses that surround Gainesville Empowerment Zone that they can partner with that have been through our Business Leader Institute for Early Learning Masterclass and Accreditation Academy. So what we're hoping would happen with this is that number one is a pilot, and we're wanting to be able to take this pilot and have it funding for 1 year and then be able to duplicate the success of this pilot and be able to find another early learning center in another neighborhood to be able to do the same thing and to provide those supports. With that said, our recommendation is to approve the recommendation to pilot the Neighborhood Innovation Grant with Gainesville for All doing business as the Gainesville Empowerment Zone for Family Learning Center to provide the $125,000 in investment funds for the project. And I'll pause here.
Second.
Motion from Member Churchman, second from Dr. Obama. Any questions? Or any discussion? Dr. Hurd.
I'm understanding that what this money is for, I want to know what our money is going for, is to what? Subsidize what the daily rate is for a certain number of children, or is it to pay for these staff supports and professional development for the staff?
It is to subsidize the daily rate. So it's not really paying for those supports. Those are the outcomes we would like to see that they're doing. Because there's a lot of those, like professional development, a lot of those things can be free things that a center can get, whether it's through ELC or whether it's through PCF or however they may get it, for professional development. But this is to be able to invest into the center, and then also as they're working to collaborate with other community partners. So it raises that rate per day, subsidy rate that they're already receiving for each child.
Okay, and our outcome measures are going to be what?
Our outcome measures we should be able to do the same thing that we are doing with the Early Learning Coalition, which is to look at what their scores are moving into kindergarten, along with that the initial assessments that they're doing. We should also be able, since we have a professional development part of it, which we should also be able to see the growth in their employees as well. Are they going after those teaching scholarships or what have you, or what they're doing? So we should be able to see the quality there. We should also be able to see what's happening in terms of the families itself, because one thing about Gainesville Empowerment Zone is that they also are a family learning center. So the family learning center part is that as my child is learning, I'm learning too. So we should be able to also get that feedback. A lot of that's going to come from surveys. A lot of that's going to come from looking at what those assessment scores look like. And that's how we'll be able to measure what did it work? Are there things that we need to tweak? And because it's a pilot, the other thing that we recognize is that we're also going to have our other childcare center owners and directors help us really look at that criteria to really continue to build it out. So it's exactly what it needs when it needs to, it looks exactly like we would like it to look. And that it's most helpful to them and it's most helpful to them.
And I have one other quick question. I noticed that we're hoping that they'll get their gold seal accreditation. The other learning centers that have been in our professional development programs, have any of them achieved that?
They have. I don't have the number to say how many, but I would like to say it's well more than half, almost actually maybe almost all have gone on to get their gold seal once they finish their accreditation. Gainesville Empowerment Zone, they are working on their accreditation through our Accreditation Academy program. So I have no doubt that they will finish and do what they need to do.
And correct me if I'm wrong, when we started the trust, we didn't have very many gold seal early learning centers in this community at all.
We did not.
Weren't there like one or two? Or am I mixing up my designations of
It was more than one or two, but you're right. There wasn't that many at all. Through our program, we have way more, and I wish I had that number in front of me. I know we did a presentation to say how many we had, but we have way more than we had before just by doing our BLI and accreditation.
So I think that's a figure we need to have in our marketing materials when it's time to re-up with the voters, what we have been able to do, and thank you for all that hard work. I know it's not a good thing. We got 14 plates spinning out there to make this happen. So we appreciate your work. And there's.
Dr. Love?
I guess I have a question. So there are other centers in the area that have been through BLI and who have gotten perhaps their gold seal. And now we're creating a situation where this one's gonna have a preferential rate. We're subsidizing rate. Which makes me worry about the impact staffing. We know that recruiting things are not easy. Staffing wise, are we going to end up potentially depleting the access to childcare in that community by having some that are
I thought I saw one of the affirmative collaborators.
It is, but if you're getting a preferential rate, the question then becomes, are you gonna be able to pay your staff more, and then you're gonna draw staff from other places, creating staffing
So we're
shortage.
cannibalizing it.
Yeah, are we cannibalizing ourselves? I was gonna, that's not the word I was thinking, but it, yeah, so that concerns me a little bit, unless. And I think it's where you started, you or, and where Chance started this idea of, is that are we paying a subsidy to the rate, or are we paying the staff supports and asking something more of, you know, if you're getting a higher per diem, are you also delivering more? Or are we requiring that delivery is greater so that there's at least a balancing on that? That does concern me that we've got a commitment and a relationship to our DLI graduates as well, and that we're giving a preferential rate of islands as opposed to the whole zone.
And I'll add my question on to Dr. Waters, which was, first of all, I love the criteria, I love that we have certain requirements. I was gonna ask, Mr. Waters, to what really talks about. And then we are subsidizing families, but what is the plan once this grant was expired to make sure that we are in a position where we can offer to those things? And maybe Mr. Waters could answer Dr. Waters' question on the adults here. We feel like we're cannibalizing other providers on our balance. And that's really a question.
I mean, it is a question, yes.
So,
Well, what's
Clark,
the
are you
research?
open to addressing those two items?
I also bring up my management team here, both the executive director and site manager.
Yeah.
It is, like a scholarship.
It is, so the college is only one center, which it basically increases their rate per child per day. Right.
So I just did an increase. I saw it as, I was, in my mind, I was marrying it with the previous, like, kids that would be on that previous list, the previous one that you were talking, no, I'm just saying, it would be the same type of family, the ELC family.
The
Right? It would be
Alice
families who, Alice families who also may be served by ELC,
Well,
and they may not be. That's what I was
that may be a more nuanced version of the question then, is are we just universally raising the subsidy, the amount basically that G and Z will receive per day per child across the board? Is it targeted?
It's across the board for all children.
So you are essentially simply raising the per diem rate that they're gonna receive compared to a center that may be relying on ELC funding only.
Right, correct.
For neighborhood, yeah. So the farm, so like, shout out the numbers.
But what's kind of what happened with the child center when we first started?
Yeah, so shout out the slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there wasn't anything else at that point supporting the other centers, and they're not getting funded now, so they're having to rely on whatever the rate is.
Okay, Dr. Lawrence, direct, or,
I'm trying to get out of everybody.
Everyone's doctor. He is a doctor, you're a doctor. Thanks.
Let me just say, first of all, we introduce our management team here. This is our new executive director, Kathy Solomon. This is Church White, and this community sometime widely known for our social service circle. Let me just say, in terms of Gainesville for all, you know, I think that the probably by 4 years, past several years. And what this grant will really help us to do, move faster toward our goal. And our goal, well, yes, high quality childcare is certainly part of our mission, but the mission is the achievement gap. That we are focused on the achievement gap, and we believe, as I've said so many times before, that if we can get to families and get to them early as possible, that we stand a better chance of putting them on a solid foundation for a lifetime learning. And that's what we're all about. And any contribution from the trust would enable us to move faster toward that goal. We're already seeing right now, our numbers are just in the last couple of months, it's taking off. We have more than 70 74.
Compared to 39 last summer.
Yes, 74. It's, we walk into the building now, you know, you hear these little voices everywhere. It's getting crowded. In fact, our infant care room is probably, it's the largest, it's the biggest growth is occurring in infant care. So we're getting to these families, and Trish can talk about what we are doing in terms of family engagement issues, also our family engagement specialist. We're doing some things that I think Cheryl, she mentioned, Trish, maybe last year or so ago. But having the kind of support that this grant offers us could make a real difference in our delivery of the kinds of high quality services.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell, and thank you, Mr. Lawrence. We see this grant, again, as a pilot, where we will work with GEZ to build it out. The goal here was to create a support for an early learning center that has, bought into what we believe is quality child care. Attended BLI, participated, going for Gold Seal, and working toward enhancing the community they're in, willing to collaborate. Because Mr. Lawrence had been before us so many times talking about his needs, quite frankly, but also truly invested in the position that Trish has with through their partnership with the parents and parental engagement. We saw this as an opportunity to really build this out so that this time next year we could really firm up that criteria that you're talking about, Maggie, in a way that will help us determine how we move this around the county. This is a one-time funding opportunity. So every year it would move to a different center, and no center would get it twice unless you change something. But that would not, our recommendation is for us to be able to move it, to be able to give these centers that support they need as they then focus on how they build out, how they become sustainable. So the GEZ will have work to do to make that happen. But we feel like this is a good start and a good way to support what they've already been doing as we look at this criteria to see how we can really pick this up and move it from neighborhood to neighborhood to encourage collaboration, encourage partnership, and certainly lift that quality that we need.
So for me then, I get it. The notion of a pilot is that you have a theory about if I do X, Y will improve. And I guess what's missing for me in all of this is what's the why? What is it that we think this investment will improve so that we know that having invested this extra amount of money in this center compared to its neighbors or compared to others that have been through BLI, what's the extra that this is going to result in? And so I like the concept of a moving around some support, but only if I have an understanding of what it is that we're trying to enhance and what that enhanced outcome might look like. We might have to revise it at the end of the pilot year, but I'm not seeing any concrete what at the end. I don't know what, we do X, we fund X, but I don't see it, what the Y is going to lead to is, and that's my only.
I can give a why. When we look at all the resources, we have middle school resources, we have elementary resources, all going into this one neighborhood. We have 2 schools, right. Yeah, and so when we look at the fact that we don't have, GZ came in with that vision of how can we support this neighborhood and look at that gap and start at the earliest age, this is what we're doing. We want to pipe in those investments at that age so that when the kids reach Rawlings, when they reach Metcalf, they're on that path, and GZ has those additional resources that they need to be able to do just that. But they're not doing it alone. They're also creating that family for their families and with their families to say, these are all the supports at where you live. And these are also your opportunities to show up and be leaders in that community. And I've met some of them. They have some great parents that talk very loudly about what they need and what they
I
want.
got a couple of years.
In fact, why was it that I was using why in the algebra, so it's not in reason sentence.
Yeah, and if I could kind of address your question as well, from my perspective, it was when I asked James a couple months ago, of the 39, how many are sponsors, how many are scholarships? There's a higher percentage than what I would expect, and to see that this kind of funding is actually needed to support those scholarship families, and to see that we have to increase the capacity of that center, or we lose that center in two theater schools, but that's what we're doing. That's my why is you're serving the whole family, you're serving the family that, but not for a subsidized rate, they wouldn't have that at all.
Okay, but to what end? I mean, again, if we're saying better kindergarten readiness, I'll bite, but I want to see.
Well,
I want to see evidence of the extra dollars that this center's getting as opposed to its neighboring centers. Okay, it's a difference.
So in the previous one, the scholarship one, the previous agenda item, they had a CLS score of 4.0. We were wanting them. This one is 4.5. So we're asking them to have higher scores.
Right, but that's a
Well,
process.
that's-
measure. It's not an outcome. It's you do better interactions. It doesn't tell me that those
So
interactions.
one of our-
lead to something.
I don't know what the class, what all it does in Vermont education, but it's some type of, let's superintendent be able to do that, but.
So one of the things that when we look at ELC, that was one of the things that we negotiated with them, that we started at 4.0, so that we could have more centers to support families. If we go up too high, then we've already basically cut off some supports for families. In this case, one of our criteria is that they have attended BLI. BLI starts at 4.5. They have well over 4.5. They have a 5.37. It's something like that. So they're already ahead of on that score, and it goes all the way up to a 7. And I think we don't have as many centers in Alachua County that are at that part of, that end, but most of our centers are between a 4.5 already in Alachua County, which is a little bit.
I don't know if somebody's gonna slay me for saying this, but I am a little nervous about giving them 1 year of funding and saying, at the end of 1 year, we're moving on to another center, because I think they need it every year until those babies in the nursery are in kindergarten. Okay, I said like these things.
Let me borrow. I wonder if
Oh, okay.
Could I just remind somebody? Can't say it much.
I think part of what I'm telling you is calling it a pilot program for all of these reasons, but it's a pilot for the trust to do this type of capacity grant, but it's really a capacity grant, because if what you're talking about is the gap and the scholarship amount, and we're not promising it forever and ever, you're really saying you are at this level. We want to help you get to this level, whether that's family served, extra services, whatever, and measure that, how they get to the next. Because, I mean, that is a fantastic data point. If we've improved the caliber of early learning education in this community systemically, that is a big freaking deal. But I think we need to,
Our family.
yeah, but I think we need to, as the pilot
this doesn't feel like a pilot. It's a pilot for us to try funding this way, but it's a capacity grant.
Before you get to, Roger, so if this board decides strategically that certain entities in certain areas need effective funding, I think this is a step to that. But I don't think the board has made that decision because that's a job, which I'm not opposed to. I'm really not. And if we have the data that says in these certain areas, we need to systemically and potentially fund those facilities because of the clients they're serving, and we have that data, and we could do that county-wide and afford it. I think staff will have to bring that back to us during our, planning and budgeting process. I think this is the way to a pilot to get that discussion at advanced. Right.
Thank you. And thank you, Christy. Christy, pointed out the, I guess, the in the contract, the performance, standards for this, program would include, children's learning gains as measured by teaching strategy. So that's would be 90%, as measured by VPK pre and post assessment, that would be 90%. And then we talked about the family engagement, that you would, get back from the surveys of the parents at 80%. So some of that will be built in that you all are talking about.
So to me, the question then remains, what your control, do you have a control group? Is that compared to the gains made by, because I have an equity issue with this. If we're gonna say we're gonna invest in a zone, let's invest in the zone. If we really want to say, let's do a pilot of what happens when you enhance the rate within a zone, and let's look at the zone and look at other BLI folks that have been through a program and raise their rate.
And would you classify that zone by the elementary school that you went to?
Sure, yeah, and I'm assuming, are all your kids gonna feed into that zone? Because for a while, I remember this is way back.
Couple of years ago.
Yeah, you were thinking about bringing kids in from other zones. If what we're talking about is that Camp Rollins zone, then let's do a pilot that enhances the rate for the folks that we've already supported through BLI, who have, achieved the minimum requirements, add money with this if we need to do it. But I just think that creating this inequality, inequity between the funding for the centers that we've already tried to support, it just doesn't, nothing to do with what you're doing at GEZ. No disagreement with it at all. It just seems to me to create an equity issue that concerns me. And then what we need to look at is what's our baseline improvement given the way we've done business, and does this really move that needle?
Okay,
So with the zone, I think it's definitely an impactful zone feeding into Rawlings and Metcalf. I think we all agree on that. And I think some of the measurement will continue to come because it's over time. You mentioned the littlest ones there, and it's great to hear. I mean, I'm sure that's a handful, more than a few handfuls, but to have the little ones there, if that consistency remains with those families, there'll be those measurable those measurable impacts and outcomes, not only on the VPK assessments and all that, but also as they hit kindergarten. Some of that it'll be lagging, as you all very well know, but I think pointing to what was mentioned with the score, if it's 5.3 or whatever, right? That's then what that means in that class rating system is that there's just that consistent high quality teacher-child interaction. When it's between a 4 and a 5, it's that it's adequate, but it could be inconsistent, right? And so there's a mix of teaching practices and whatnot going on, but the consistency may not be there at the level that, mind you, within a year, they've gotten that consistency there. So I think that's something that we should recognize too, is from what I've seen there, when I've been through there, and what I'm hearing is they really have been consistent in those interactions with those students and those families. So, and definitely if we're waiting, we haven't heard yet if Rawlings is going to be, it's going to be pulled into that community partnership school. That Howard Bishop is currently, their community partnership school, and they reached back into Metcalf. There's a possibility there, you never know, that, we've got Rawlings. They're in the mix, we're waiting on approval or not, to pull them in. So there's a lot of resources being concentrated right there right now with those families. And again, with the thought that Rawlings and Metcalf eventually feed into Howard Bishop for the most part, right? So.
Right, what if we added, another item to the motion that asks staff to get rid of the provider to develop those outcome based, metrics during this year that would focus in on specifically either simply Metcalf or Rawlings. And we have staff to bring that back. Is this something that we should be looking at systemically, outside of this thing?
The metrics are fine. I mean, that's the equity issue is still there.
Well, so, right, but so your perspective, you're like, you're front of all of them for anything, and so I want to, sorry.
I shared on the screen, what their methods would be for their contract, that we using, their program days.
Do we have that data for any of the other?
For,
Any
well,
of the
this
other?
is just what we've worked with for, the GEZ, we've met
Right.
with them, and, they're, learning things with the pre-medical.
It doesn't answer my question, right? It doesn't answer, does this get you someplace that the others aren't getting to? I mean, I hear you, and I hear what you're saying, you gotta start somewhere, but on the flip side, if I put myself in the shoes of somebody who's committed to us, done all the training we've asked them to do, has gone through DLI, is now qualified for Gold Seal, but they're not getting.
They aren't this year, but they could next year. Again, this is one-time funding at the way we're recommending it for this year.
And I'm not sure
then-
in 1 year you're gonna prove the concept like this, which I think is critically. Dr. Carpus, sorry, referring to my, you know, I just have I don't know, I hear you and I am tempted to go with you, and then I flip over to the other perspective of the centers that have done everything we've asked of them.
Yeah, I have nothing bad against any of it.
Right, but they're not gonna get an extra rate.
Or they may next year though, or they, this may be the catalyst to where
Maybe.
we develop a subsidized funding model for those schools that are providing these types of services to these types. Okay, so we have a motion, we've had some discussion, let's open it up to the public, we will bring it back to the board and conclude some discussion. So, if you want to speak to this item, why don't you come up and introduce yourself, give us, not more than 3 minutes. We'll have, ask you to be time. Looks like we're gonna need a couple of family members, so welcome to the first.
Thank you all for allowing us to speak this afternoon. We've been at GEZ for about 3 months. She's been in school since she was 2, and this is probably our 4th or 5th actually school in the county. And it's honestly my favorite. I heard you guys talking about like parent engagement and relationships with parents and literacy. She was born in 2020, so I'm from the younger generation. I'm only 24. But I think that a lot of things are kind of like old school, and a lot of schools don't provide opportunities for us parents to get involved with our children, to learn what they learned or the teaching style that's being presented in the classroom. Every day she goes to school, they're learning something, they're being sent home with not book work, but like worksheets and stuff like that. She's able to recite the information that she's being taught at school on top of what I'm teaching her at home. On top of what I'm teaching her at home, I'm seeing those same skills being implemented in her school. And one of the main concerns also that I talked about was consistency. Within those 3 months, nothing has changed. Like, everything is something new every week. They have speakers that come out to the school. There's volunteers, people who help them with speech, behavioral things. So I think that GEZ does offer something bigger, and there's a lot of potential in that school. And that it is a good thing for that side of town, for that side of the community. There's not much to offer over there as far as things to help parents with their children, to teach them how to read, to teach them how to engage in the book, to teach them how to teach them how to pick up literacy skills. So I just want to thank DZ and thank you all for having us here, and hopefully that when they do get that funding and they get up that capacity, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brittany Turk, and my children have been attending GZ for 7 months now. When they started, I was going through a transition with job, and I was trying to find a daycare for my children that I knew that they would get the correct and the best learning they could possibly need, plus being a well-loved environment. I was sitting in my car. I'll just give it to you guys truthfully. I was sitting in my car, and I was just thinking of what school I could get my children in school that my children actually enjoy and love. With being a parent, it started at home. My children cannot get the best of the best if I'm mentally not stable at home. And coming in, I was in a rocky place, and I was given love and open arms, not even have to explain my situation. I guess my face told it all. And they sat down with me, and the first thing Mr. Lawrence said, "We are a family." He put that out there very clear. We're family, and we're here to give your child the exceptional, education they need plus the love. I have 4 children, ages 8, 4, 5, and 2. My 5-year-old did his first year of graduation at GSD when they had their first year of graduation going into kindergarten. I have a 4-year-old that's now, that was 3 at that time, and I had a 1-year-old that's now 2. My oldest son is Xavier Carmen. When he came in, he didn't know how to read. He's actually one of the only student in his class now that can read, going to Park Elementary. And the first thing when his teacher asked him, Ms. Telso said, "How did you learn how to read?" He said, my teacher at my old school." And she asked me, she said, "Where did he go to school at?" And I said, "Gainesville Primary School." She said, "I heard of them." Anytime I just need helping hand, they guide me through the way with life in general. They don't look past me and just look at my children. They look at me first, but they say it started at home. We hold a lot of PTA meetings where we come together as one and we talk to the parent, they talk to the parents, and we discuss what can we do for our children and what we're planning to do for our children to better them and elevate them. Honestly, they have met with my grandmother that graduated from the film Cookman. She's big in education. And when she sat down with them, she done been bragging about them, I think, to a child who started the school, just listening to my grandmother and a friend. So I think that this funding will work out because although it's so much this funding can go to, once you see somebody take foot ground running, trying to better the environment, I think it's the best chance that we should possibly take. I don't recommend no other daycare for my children or children. Sorry to say it like that, but I done seen and heard things that I have not once dealt with since my kids have started. And my children talk very well, even my 2-year-old. I think he come in, he talk really well. Y'all don't think he's 2. And the way that he's able to say his words and the way he's able to read and the conversations that I have with the teachers and plans that they show me what they're planning to do and what they're planning to change and how we're going to work better. And I love that when it comes to conduct with their behavior, we sit down as one and talk about ways to get the child in a better elevation to be better. This is an opportunity. I'm thankful for this opportunity to speak with you guys. I just think that GNC is one of the best schools that have opened up, and I don't see another school coming.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Can anybody else? So these are the maddening because we are now at 5:40 and stuff.
Sorry.
Okay, oh, it's okay. Just gonna say, see what happens. Okay, anyone else in the public? All right, coming back to the board, we've got a motion on the floor. Have a discussion. Any further discussion? Okay, all brothers in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Yeah, but passes with member Dr. Warren in the Senate. Cheryl, will you and I? Yes, you and I. Okay. Got that? Okay, thank you, staff. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for all.
Thank you all.
You heard, what I would just say is, you heard the comments, and, what I'm hearing actually is we're looking for something more systemic that we can do across the county, and it might become a part of that expansion to, all of our. Right, next up, we have gun violence funding allocation. Allocation of the remaining funds, the recommended action, the board is asked to approve the gun violence proposal. Ms. Giles?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Cornell. So at our last meeting, if you all will remember, we voted to support the $500,000 for gun violence. At that time, we withheld $66,850 and asked that the group come back with a proposal for that use. And we asked Randy, are you going to speak on it? And if Randy come forward as they have done it as requested. Thank you, Randy.
Hey, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for that. To everyone, thank you for having us back. And this Tyler, Randy Stone, Community Health Director, Gainesville. As Ms. Tyler shared, we are coming back to you all with some updated numbers, specifically the $66,850 that was not approved from the previous proposal, and we are bringing you some a proposal for reprogramming. Just as a reminder, the two things that were not approved in the last proposal were the grant manager and the funding for the Santa Fe College Administrator's Assistant. So that left us with a total of $56,850 remaining. I will note that we brought this back to the Alliance, the group of stakeholders that it needs, to gather their feedback as well. One of the things that the board had some inquiries about last time was specifically what the gun violence numbers are looking like in Gainesville, as well as what violence interruption has looked like in Gainesville recently. So we do have some of those numbers here to share with you all before we dive into the proposal. So I will turn it over to you.
So can you just very briefly tell us what increase, would you add a grant funded project? Or?
Sure. So we added, the first component is youth steering committees and two additional Alachua County municipalities. Of interest in the last proposal was the work of the youth steering committee that is led by Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs of the city of Gainesville. The county expressed interest in having youth steering committees in other municipalities in the county. So this proposed funding will allow for two additional youth steering committees to be stood up and operated in FY25. That funding is about, the number is 42,000, so 21,000 for each youth steering committee. That includes not only stipends for the youth who are participating in that, which is something that we do with the city's youth steering committee, but it includes staff and facilitator time, food and drink at meetings, transportation stipends for youth to access meetings, especially in rural communities where transportation can be a barrier, and also includes additional payment for attending and participating in community engagement activities around the topic area. The second component, and that is the remaining funding of $24,850, will be added into the line item for grant funded projects, so to increase the capacity of those grant funded projects. One of the things that we've added to that, since you all saw the original proposal, specifically was that we will fund one project that is specifically geared towards professional development, mentorship, and mental health support of the youth that are involved in the three youth steering committees. So that's the one that's currently operating within the city, and then the two additional youth steering committees that will be added within the county. So that will be something that's written into the call for projects that at least one of those proposals will be geared towards serving those youth specifically.
Does everybody understand the changes? They added the food sharing and what's right here.
I'll move.
Move to approve the
Yes.
second by Alachua. And I'm in a rush you, but you want to give us some data that we had after?
Sure, I will bring that on this Brittany folder that I have submission.
Hey, what do you think?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, here, members of the board. Really quickly, I'll, try to speak through these that you all had asked for a little bit of context about some of the things that are happening in the city. So I did want to start by offering some of the gun violence data that was presented by GPD almost 2 weeks ago. They gave their quarterly update to the city commission. I'm just going to focus on 3 categories. So the first category is shots fired. And across the year, we've seen in the city almost 32% reduction in shots fired. Q1, quarter 1, we saw 45 shots fired calls. Q2, 35, and this recent quarter, which ended on September 30th, 24 shots fired calls. Moving on to persons shot, which is the second method that they look at. Saw almost 47% reduction from Q1. There were 13 people shot. 3 of those were accidental. Q2, 16 people shot. 3 of those were accidental. And then this last quarter, which ended in September, 8 people were shot, and 1 of those were accidental. For homicides, we've seen from this quarter to the last quarter, 100% reduction. Q1, there were 6 homicides that occurred. Q2, there were 2. And this last quarter, we did 100 homicides. I do want to encourage folks to go back and look at Chief Boyd's presentation. It covered a lot of different information about violent crime. It was a fantastic presentation. One of the things that the chief emphasizes as well is that, yes, these numbers are very promising. We want to celebrate the reduction, but we also want to continue doing the work that we've done to make sure that these numbers, we see a steady decline as we continue. The other thing that definitely point, but one of the things that we always emphasize is our intentionality around collaboration and understanding that the reduction in the numbers that we're seeing is a collaborative effort across all of our stakeholders. The direction of the police department, Impact G&D, our alliance, and a lot of the programs that you all are funding that are working directly in the neighborhoods that are participating. Specifically with Impact G&D, I wanted to highlight the work of our violence interruption, which you all have asked specifically about the last time we were here. And with the city, our violence interruption falls under the William Stokes Center, run by Bishop Christopher Stokes out of Micanopy. And so just to give you all a snapshot of what these numbers look like, so that you can see the scope of the impact. And we have Caleb Young, who is the founder and director of Inspire Florida, who provides those services under the Stokes Center contract. With the information that we get from the Gainesville Police Department about the hotspots and the zones that we're seeing shootings and homicides happening, we have several target areas that are focused on. One of those would be Tiger Bay, Duval, into the States. Also the Sweetwater Square area, which previously was Village, Forest Green or Village Green. And then the downtown area, midtown area, we also see quite a bit of shooting incidents. So that is where a lot of their efforts have focused. With the understanding that we definitely want to expand those capacity as well. But some of the numbers that we've seen as far as our violence interruptions, over 300 hours of direct contact in those identified neighborhoods, 76 home visits, 54 parental contacts, and that's working, directly with parents, whether it's in their home or the community, to, make sure that we're serving the youth that we know to be potential transmitters of violence as well, and collaboratively. 185 field contacts with folks in the community, 25 referrals to local programs for the folks that they engage with. several firearm leads that we've been able to work with our law enforcement on, and then also some of our law enforcement efforts. I do want to say that in addition to the violence interruption, there's a community outreach and engagement piece to this that's really important. And a part of violence interruption is consistency in the neighborhood, trust building in the neighborhood, mentorship, so that folks see a consistent presence. And so some of that has looked like facilitated mentorship classes from a partnership with the Housing Authority in Fort Times, which is in the Duval area, which teaches you leadership skills. Also de-escalation of neighborhood conflicts, working in those areas to facilitate a ceasefire between some of the entities that were known to have disputes with each other, multiple canvassing events in those areas. Also just different community events where they're again visible and engaging folks in the community. And also in the downtown area where there are a lot of concerts that have happened, a lot of events. Our violence interrupters are present at those events as well. So some of the, more notable places would be like the music hall, Simon's nightclub, which is downtown, the Cobble Lounge, just to name a few. And there have definitely been some success stories out of those interventions, folks coming into those facilities that may have been carrying, and we were able to, mitigate that potential risk. Also hosting youth firearm safety courses. In this quarter, 6 youth were certified in firearm safety. And I should note, I don't remember if I mentioned this at the last meeting, but we, in collaboration with Police Fire Florida and to our community, we created a youth violence safety booklet. And so we've really emphasized talking about gun violence in ways that are much more direct than I think maybe folks are used to, and that involves understanding firearms, and it involves understanding what safety around firearms looks like. And the more you are comfortable with those conversations, that we think is extremely important, and that's what we discuss.
Get copies of the booklet or learn a little bit more information about the safety classes for you.
So I would be able to speak to the safety classes, but I do have I have to be able to present.
Thank you, Brittany, for bringing back additional info. My question is, I've heard a lot of what's happening in the city of Gainesville, and I'm wondering if we are making contact with youth that are out, that don't live within the city of Gainesville. I don't know the stats on, I know we have some situations out in the rural areas, so I'm just wanting to make sure that the funding that we're giving that's being given to this is not just focused on the city of Gainesville, because we are a county applied mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we can discuss in how to grow our efforts, and yes, we can absolutely.
Thanks for all this really great information. I'm just wondering, is there anything we need to know about the accidental shots fired? And we didn't mention suicides. And the reason I'm bringing those two things up is because we're really interested in safety for children around guns. And I don't know if kids are playing with guns that are not locked, or is there something where we can intervene there?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So some of the accidentals were kids that had which is a part of the firearm safety that was really pushing safety around firearms. Gun locks, how to secure your firearms if you're a parent or a caregiver. Being very, very responsible if you're new to that heavily. With the suicide numbers, in the quarterly report, they do have suicide numbers for quarter 1 and quarter 2. Those numbers don't come from the police department, they come from the medical examiner's office, and we get our data from GPD, so they are having to wait, a little bit of time for the medical examiner to confirm whether a death is suicide. So those numbers do lag a little bit, they are. Okay. I don't have any problem. Yes.
Okay, we're in, here. We're about to leave a member here. Any other questions? All right, so we've got a motion on the floor to accept the revised proposal. Thank you, the Alliance, for bringing that back, listening to the floor and bringing back the data. And then from the public, let's bring it back to the board. Any further discussion? My only comment is, Caleb, and I can't tell you the number of people that have expressed the good work that you are doing, door to door, neighborhood to neighborhood, person to person. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's all I'm gonna say. I'll say a lot more
It's
later.
life-saving work.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing work, and we have so much more to do, but this early data is showing that it's important. So thank you, and thank you for being here. Okay, Member James?
Brandy, you and I played phone tag a little bit. If you can stick around for just a moment, I just want to make a couple of reasons.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is unanimous. All right, we have 4 minutes. We'll probably go over a little bit. Member certain pages, I know you have to leave. The last item is the enrichment program that Bonnie is going to summarize. Anything that wasn't in the backup or highlights that you want to share with the board, make sure that we're here. And we're here to receive the information, which is actually already received, so. What about the writing? Provide you with it.
Okay, so the quick version is we've been funding enrichment programs for 3 years. These were our providers in the first round. We had these 6 wonderful providers. We are, moving to the next slide in the quick version. Then, increasing our youth attendance in enrichment steadily over the past 3 years with, with our enhancing and then new 14 providers, we expect to go even much bigger than this. So this shows our session attendance over the last 3 years. If you guys want me to share about who the providers are, I kind of feel bad not saying anything about who they are and what they do.
Yeah, tell us who they are.
We have Child Advocacy Center provides programming to residents to increase awareness of human trafficking. Our Cultural Arts Coalition, they provide science club program designed to academically supplement science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to elementary school students. The Florida Museum provides informal hands-on science education. The Gainesville Chamber Orchestra provided violin lessons to Lake Forest Elementary. The Motivate You provides an interactive curriculum training based on promoting youth social emotional development, helping them to develop skills to effectively process their emotions, resolve conflicts, and build successful relationships and more. And our Underground Kitchen does culinary training and education that includes cooking sessions that focus on nutritional awareness and ingredients. So I do want to say who they are because they've done the hard work in the past 3 years, and they provided all these sessions in our next slide to children across the Alachua County. So let's skip to the next one. So in fiscal year 2024, we had 47 sites, 613 sessions, and over 8,000 youth served. We invested, covered up in this slide, but I think it was 183,000 in the program allocation, which they pretty well used in this year. Looking at where the services were provided on the next slide, we saw 89% of sessions were located in the city of Gainesville. In our new RFP, we had a requirement to get into those rural areas, and 30% of sessions would be in the rural areas. So you can see that our most common zip code was 32605 in the past year, and then a lot in East Gainesville. But we did get out to some sessions in rural areas, and we hope to increase that in the new year, in the current fiscal year with our new RFP. folks. So on the next slide just shows where they're located on the map, the dots on the map, and some wonderful pictures of the programs enactment. On our next slide, we show our partner survey results. So we'll continue with the partner survey, but we revamped it to include questions to ask about knowledge, skills, behavior, and whether the youth have, this is their first exposure to this type of programming. So, but they did very well. 100% of organizations agreed or thought services were doing great in these areas. And it's at the end of 45, keep in mind there's 47 different partner locations. Of course, some partner locations receive more than one service provider. On our next slide, I think we go into more of the partner survey results, what people felt were valuable. And you guys have read all this, but again, continuing to see that they love the sessions and the services that were offered. On our next slide, you've seen our performance measure for all grades, so this is great. What I really want to talk about is on our last slide. What's next? So we're really excited to be bringing on 14 enrichment service programs. We're having a convening with them this week on Wednesday, November 6th, where we're going to be onboarding, training them. We're going to, of course, this is a much bigger investment than we had before. This is going to be, there's going to be an externally facing link where providers, organizations throughout the county can request one of these, however many services that they want to come out to their site. They'll fill out the request. We're going to have, within the next week or so, we'll have communications out there and banner on our website to advertise these programs. And so the community can learn what they're about and then request them. They'll have the training in SAMIS to learn how to accept and begin recording the session. So we're really excited about bringing on these new programs and bringing them together this Wednesday to provide them what they need to be successful.
Chrissy, did you want to mention this?
Yes, in your handout, you will find the 16 enrichment providers that we are funding with $3 million allocation. You'll notice that we spent, or we have allocated $898,405. And with the remaining dollars, we will be using those to monitor expenditures to be able to support additional enrichment services as those who we are contracted with are running out of or exceeding their costs. And so that's how the remaining dollars will be used. Programs such as the Florida Museum, Underground Kitchen, a lot of our STEM programs, high demand, motivate youth, high demand. And so we heard their comments at board meetings saying we can do more, we just ran out of dollars. And so we'll have this opportunity to do that.
30% of the world.
Yes, yes, it is in the contract. We have said it, they are expecting it. And lots of our providers are only focusing on rural areas. And so that's the message that I follow.
Okay, members, questions? Comments?
Pass out t-shirts.
Yes, we are there.
Yes.
Okay.
So, the 30%, so that's in the aggregate, or are you expecting each program to?
Each provider has their own performance measure, so each one of them must provide 30% of their sessions in rural area.
So there's more.
Yeah.
You don't have to do
Yeah.
that. Any other questions? Great, the last item or 2 items ago, we did 125,000. Last year, we had 183 going to, kind of figured out the benefit that we have a bigger need. And so, I'm excited to see the results of this. Thank you for the presentation. Sorry, I didn't. All right, any public want to speak to this item? Okay, coming back to the board, any further on this item? All right, next up, we've got general public comments. Anyone from the public wants to go to the board? We have not already done. Anyone? Anyone online? Okay, board member comment. Doug, you have anything? Okay.
Last month we agreed on board meetings for 2025. We have calendar invites going out, or will they go out?
For all of, for the next year, we can do that.
That would be beautiful.
We can make that. Well, we're hopeful.
I guess my only comment is please be looking for opportunities for us to lay hands on our new building and
In the
express
new
our
year.
community intentions for all of the things that are going to emanate out of there. And there also may be opportunities to use the parking lot to do events that are not huge, but bigger than you can accommodate inside. Yeah. Yeah,
I like
so
that.
please think about using it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
That wasn't no thank you, that was no thank you.
Carol, do you have anything? Okay. I talked to you. Thank you. And guys, please can be all over me, going 6 minutes over, but.
Oh, yeah.
We'll say that, you just blame it on me.
Yeah, we.
Just blame it on me.
Stop nagging.
Yeah.
Blame it on me.
I'll take this meeting, which I totally appreciate. Thank you all, and with that, we are.
Thank you.